of this series. Crucial
Same
moment
sides?
to pick up their first series win here of the spring split, rather. And again, like you say, same sides, same bands so far. We get the Ashe band away, the Rise, the Caitlyn, the Maokai, the Syndra this time changes
That's
it
new.
up for AL.
Yeah, that's new. And again, as you're saying, one of these teams is walking away with their first series victory of the year, putting a foot forward. And it's going to be the Elise first pick from Moved. So I was wondering whether that should have been dropped anyway, but this does open up the bot lane, which has been most successful in the series, the Zeri Yumi. So that's going to be picked up, presumably, unless you're going to go towards the Zeri Lulu and you kind of then lock in the Sivir on the other side. I wonder if that has to be the response now, because that Zeri Yumi, far too valuable. They're going to lock in that Sejuani again for Ning. So you're expecting the Sivir now from Betty.
Well, we went from having the duality of that very aggressive early game with late game scaling ADC against each other. Now we'll just get both. It feels like, or at least both scaling, rather. And the obvious setup portion for Ultra Prime, Ning on the Sejuani, beautiful, love it. He's actually been progressing through the series in a pretty big way. And now it's Xiaohao who is kind of left with the ball in his court, having taken away his comfortable Elise. We'll go with the Wukong.
Okay, so Wukong obviously gives you a lot more team fight engaged. It's not just a single target. Against Zeri Yumi, you often do want that vibe because you just need to lock that target down. Zeri's a little less slippery without just the permanent crazy move speed and disengage potential of that Yumi attached to them. Of course, Wukong also a very strong duelist 1v1 as well. Probably up there as best in the game, maybe unless someone like a Viego gets fed. In terms of the pro game, anyway. Some other duelists in solo queue get a little bit weirder on that front. Back into these second round bans, though, we have jungles and bot lanes for both sides. That's been the hallmark of 13.1. It's just very easy to blind pick and respond to these lanes and allow your solo lanes a bit more flexibility on 4-5 with some deeper champion pools in the solo lanes away from the S tier picks.
And that's where I wonder how whittled down these solo lanes do end up getting. We get the LeBlanc ban, we get the Kassadin ban. So far so good for AL. We're staying with their second phase bans. The LeBlanc, interestingly enough, banned away, but the Galio rejoined that ban table.
Of course, that Galio was third ban from Ultra Prime for the first 2 games of this series, so makes it through to the second round, but wasn't snapped up early enough from anyone's legend. I'm wondering whether this opens up something like a Silas maybe from Pingzi as well. Lots of good ultimates to steal in terms of the Lulu ult and the Sejuani ult are actually pretty good. The Lulu ult is a little bit underrated, but I wonder if that could be picked out at some point. And also just very good at skirmishing and getting into the back line with the Wukong setting up for each other.
Yeah, honestly, I love right now the AL team comp because Yumi has so many attachment points that feel really strong. And now that we're going into the second phase here, it's about getting those power picks in the solo lanes. And Ultra Prime hovering right now over the Silas, and it'll be locked in. So they get the power pick itself.
All right, so I think we could be looking at another Akali Jax angle. That could potentially be the threat here. Akali good into the Silas in lane by most accounts. It's a fairly swingy matchup. Someone like Zaka, of course, in their World Championship run across the LCK, won that matchup multiple times. Some of the best Silas players in the world can flip the matchup, but Akali is definitely known to be one which is favored on the whole. And then if you look in something like that Jax, it stops the power of something like the Renekton Sejuani coming out again, becomes a huge side lane threat, and you're into another melee in that silence. So that's the easy 4-5 coming in from anyone's legend. Found success from it before. Allows EDZ to start popping off again. Bulls have such a good game in game 1 with that.
I am interested at when these team fights do come to bear. Obviously, the flanking powers of AL are going to be insane in the way they enter the fight with their 2 big power points of the solo lanes. But the team fight potential for Ultra Prime does have me raising an eyebrow here, my man. But it is the Jace, I guess, in the top lane now.
Yeah, well, that's because you, if you lock in the Renekton Sejuani, Jax just absolutely monsters you. We've already seen that, don't need to see that one again, nor do Ultra Prime want to subject themselves to it. So Harry locks in the Jace, a bit more range, and that is very important because for me, the identity of a champion like Jax is that if you pick too much melee into a Jax, he wins the game. He counter-strikes you, he ults you, and he just destroys your entire team fight. Jace gives you a little bit more range to play with, even though it doesn't link up as well with Sejuani. I think in regards to denying the Jax in a side lane in the laning phase 2, that is an okay adaptation from me.
We're going to see what adaptations work and what doesn't as we go into our third game here. Again, we were coming into this series trying to figure out what strats work for these teams. What are they going to be focusing on? Well, we found our focus. Solo lanes, you go ahead and pop off Kings, but it's about the bot lane. It's about jungle getting proactive. And I'm very excited to see what kind of step up we see from Betty, Sword Art versus Doggo, Baolan, after now being both put on very insurance policy, as I like to say, carries, with a little bit of late game focus and not as much spice in the laning phase until we get that jungle focus. But that is where everything kind of boils down. And both teams, again, we've said it multiple times, need to come away with some kind of positive out of this long break and come away with a series win.
Slowly inching, crawling further towards that Summoner's Rift. Game 3, onto it we go. 5-man fan, no level 1 shenanigans at this point.
A little bit of cheering there for this third game. Long series here. Maybe everybody's getting a little tired, but it will just be, as you said, just a standard setup. Oh, we're still here. So obviously, want to take a look at where these junglers are going to be starting. Looks like we will get Xiaohao starting on the bottom side of the map with Ning starting on the top side. Can lead to some of those changes in priority early. You already said ZDZ on the Jax. Going to be a force, I feel like, here with the power pick. And want to see if Ning really is going to put that big focus in bot side.
Lots of ability to skirmish in this game compared to previous ones, though, because you don't have, like... So I do think that Sylas adds in an extra factor to being able to play around mid lane in a way that we haven't seen as much in this series. Sylas being able to play very aggressively there. Melee versus melee in the mid lane means that you're expecting more potential fights around that point. But with these bot lanes being slightly more tit for tat, scaling, Yuumi, Lulu, of course having similar lanes instead of having like the higher burst of the Lucian Nami compared to the Zeri Yuumi. Maybe that's something to play around as well for these jungles.
Harry taking pretty heavy trades from ZDZ early on. Might need that side swipe setup by Ning as he's passing up that way as well, since he's got to clear that entire side of the jungle now. Pressure in the bottom side early on. I wonder if they get a little bit more out of that one. Maybe an early play for Doggo or so. But right now, Xiaohao, who has been on the Elise, funny enough, is going to be on the Monkey King himself. And feel like it's a little bit of a different approach. Ning looking like a early setup, maybe going on the aggressive here on the Sejuani.
Gets a ward down, understands that you can now see whether Xiaohao is going to make his way up there. ZDZ stacking the passive, looking to see if he can get some attack speed up, but doesn't even have level 3 yet. He walks into a 1v2 at this point, not sure it's going to go as well as the last time he tried.
Does have flash at least. I guess you got that holding on for you, but ZDZ not going to be baited out just yet. He's trying to take these aggressive trades to set it up. Ning steps away, but ZDZ flashes now realizing what's happened, and ZDZ has no way out. He's going to be stunned up, locked down. Ning with first blood.
And it is a sad reflection, the opposite of what happened in game 1 for ZDZ. First game, Renekton Sejuani walks away from the 1v2, teleports back in and finds himself in an advantage. Not nearly the same this time. Looks for the 1v1, doesn't find it, gets answered on. And now, Ultra Prime, compared to that first game, have themselves something to play around in that top side. The Jace, the adaptation to the Jax matchup, having more gold to play with than their previous answer.
Yeah, I'm not going to blow it out of proportion, but that's TP and flash down for no flash and an early kill for Ultra Prime. They are sitting pretty right now, as Ning now having reset going down towards his bottom side, having those boosts, a little bit of speed on that piggy. But we'll see Xiaohao at least trying to cut that off with the Scuttle Crab Ching. In a heavy trade with no mana in the mid lane against Ping Z.
Xiaohao looking towards the spot side, at least spots out Ning, but not able to do anything with it. Xiaohao, not on the Elise as you were saying, hasn't found the first impact in this game. Now waiting really to see where they can impact anything else. Top lane, not really in a position to influence just yet.
Doggo.
Bot lane though, Doggo flying in.
He was waiting, no mana on Betty. That's a flash out. from at least Baolan, who was trying to get the kill. The Ghost and the heal utilized by AL's bot lane, though.
This champion is so sneaky, flying over these walls. Very, very dangerous when you lose track of them, particularly ever since Zeri became much more bursty. Lower range, but more bursty. Really, really dangerous to disrespect where they are on the map. But still, this can be even some of the traders who are pulling out Flash, Ignite, Ghost Heal. These bot lanes, which are of a similar archetype, giving as good as they get to each other.
Spotted out by the cheeky ward. Xiao's actually heading up into his top side of the jungle here. Dragon is on the board. We saw Ultra Prime be able to stack those ones up last time around. Not necessarily early, but we'll see what kind of priority lies around that Dragon when this Rift Herald comes up. One, interestingly enough, we haven't seen a lot of trades, at least. It's been a lot of either just let it go or fight around the objective. So with the change-ups to the kind of comps, and especially with Ching, maybe there's a little bit of mobility in the mid lane. I wonder how that changes for Ultra Prime in the combo with Ning.
Well, yeah, in terms of like the
I
trade
love it. Look at this man.
No, yeah, Ning is doing a really good job of just being present, being in the enemy jungle early on, and CDZ looking for these all-in moments. Not quite at level 6 at this point. Probably going to hit it off this cannon wave. In fact, he just hits it right there. But Ning there to make sure that Jax can't find the all-in, can't find that level up kind of moment. And I'm going to track back to actually something you're talking about in terms of not really seeing fights around the objectives, kind of seeing a couple more trades as well, if that. I think a lot of that is about the nature of these champions and how they can fight around stuff like the Herald. Talked about how Renekton very strong in that kind of identity in previous games. When you have a Wukong, obviously that's a very strong Herald champion, but in this game, I think we maybe could see ourselves a bit of a scuffle around this. You see that there's an all-in on the top side.
Okay, we get the 1v1 ZDZ. A little bit of damage there, but now Xiaohao's caught out a little bit, and look at this entire move from Ultra Prime. Their whole team's here. They get one trade back. Ping Z gets one onto Ning. Might get traded down here, though. Harry flashes forward, has the counter-strike to get them out of there for ZDZ. Ping Z's down! Ching and Harry trade the kills. They get one each, and that's a landslide from Ultra Prime.
Oh, we talked about how Sylas allows you to skirmish a bit through to a bit more towards that melee versus melee mid lane matchup as well. Ultra Prime, it was a swing and a miss in game 1 for their early game plan. Game 2, it came online in the late game, and game 3, much earlier on now. Not even at the Herald spawn, but trading plates across the map, getting Doggo 2 plates from that mid lane, and 2 kills from Ching Sylas. What a glow up this has been throughout the series for the struggling team.
And I think Ching himself, right, we were giving such big props to the series for Ping Z coming in here, but Ching, who's been trying to form himself into this very gifted, strong presence of a mid laner, for Ultra Prime, that's exactly what they need. And again, we had already highlighted to show up amongst these names like this, with the setup of Ning, a world champion, it's got to feel so damn good.
And the ability to just kind of understand when the player's on. I mean, Ning having a really good moment there already, kind of interrupting the Nimbus Strike, gets some good damage down, stops Wukong from starting to kind of dish out those auto attack damages and go into the clone. Ning, Ching doing a really good job of linking up and making a huge snowball play in this. And you know, even going into that second game, I was really worried about Ultra Prime and like, oh, actually, game 1, but he wasn't looking clean from them. But they have, you know, credit to them, come back in game 2 and now in game 3, continuing to build on their successes and improving.
He's going to be building that Rod of Ages as well. Stacking that one up here, but now we get the fight over Rift Herald that we
have ultimates back up
promised.
as well.
Got the Grandmaster's Knight now as well. See Baolan on his way. It's a 2v1 in bottom side right now with Doggo, so it looks like AL might back away. Oh my god, that accelerated shock blast does so much, and now Rift Herald goes freely to Ultra Prime. Thank you for the lead.
Yeah, didn't even need to use the Sejuani ultimate. Maybe if Wukong gets into a good spot, things change, but it was AL that kept their bot lane down towards that side of the map, didn't rotate them up towards that Herald. It's going to be the Herald take from Ultra Prime. Leash, very thankful for from AL. You can see Baolan once again. From his lane,
he got spotted up. Oh, Ching can't find it. Close, but can't find it. It was the absolute madman movement right now from Balan, who just has been everywhere else, and Doggo's been perfectly fine farming up this bottom lane solo XP as well, and it's been enabling a lot of the map priority that Ultra Prime has gotten this time around, and they find themselves, you know, circling that 2,000 gold lead just under 10 minutes.
And that's even taking into account the 2 turret plates which have been taken by Betty and Sword Art as kind of recompense for that Herald. Because, of course, earlier on, Doggo and Baolan took those 2 plates in the mid lane after the mid lane skirmish, which went so well for them. So suddenly you're looking at a Sylas who is doing very well for themselves. You have the Zeri and the Lulu, which are by no means behind in their own right, even though Betty and Sword Art stayed in that bot lane to claim those plates. And this Jax, which was such a big win condition in game 1, not nearly in the same position either. And it was Legend. Now they are the ones who need to find a place somewhere, somehow.
Final chapter coming out from Sword Art does get the lockdown. Betty in some trouble here. Flash from Doggo puts himself in a bad place. He's in some trouble himself. Now Xiaohao wants the kill, but now he's getting gunned down. AoE, Ultra Shock Laser. No, it's Balan that gets the kill.
Oh,
Ning
so
gets
close
out with
as
a
well.
quick flash.
The return flash from Betty. Xiaohao, Betty and Sword Art so close to turning around that play, so close to taking down Doggo, taking down Ning as well, but it doesn't work out for them. All of the plays which went against Ultra Prime in game 1 go handily towards them in this all-important game 3 and put them closer to towards the first series win. It's definitely a good first few steps for it.
Man, I am so happy to see Doggo playing like this. Yes, in past instances and in some instances this is too much, right? But the fact that he has the confidence to play like this on the Zeri in this series, that just makes me happy. It makes me smile ear to ear, and he is pulling it off. Yes, Ultra Shock Laser didn't hit that foul line, gets the kill. It's the duo, baby. That's what matters.
That is so painfully close, and you know, so good to see Doggo kind of realize a bit more of their form as well, realize some of that potential, seeing it once again. But also for Ning, you know, we know this guy can be such a innovative, shall we say? There are a lot of words you can say about Ning, but such a aggressive, ever-present jungler in that early game, finding his own angles into the game. It's good to see that he's had better and more helpful impact towards the team in this third game, rather than just like the half look-ins and the missed attempts. He's really found his angle into this game.
It's been beautiful to watch the setup so far. Now we are getting to item completions here. We have the Roa already, the Eclipse also completed for Harry. So I was gonna say Sword Art finally finds the ward there, and we got the Kraken Slayer now as well for Betty. So I think there's a little bit more Wraith play on the bottom side. They're still in trouble. And, they have a big focus from Ning down here right now, but it looks like Ning's pathing away, and the warding should be taken out slowly but surely. But Ning not setting eyes on bot lane, now setting eyes potentially on mid lane. Oh, never mind.
Ning's just being able to respond, right? Particularly in a melee versus melee matchup in mid, you're expecting fights to happen a lot, but this is exactly what Ning should be doing. You are tanky enough to not get burst out, you have the mobility to get away from these plays should someone try and turn things around onto you. It's not like Xiaohao is strong enough to jump onto you and burst you out, being set at 0-2 and not at their first item yet. So Ning doing what I believe is the correct thing, just making sure that they are battle warding, scouting out to the enemy jungle, replacing some of these pink wards which are just removed from the enemy jungle, and Ultra Prime, they'll use that as a platform to finally take down that bot turret. And while all this is happening, top lane is also on an island, doing very well in its own right too.
Yeah, I mean, Harry's got the coconut with the umbrella up. Like, from it's making a comeback. All right, CDZ flashing out of the slam down from Harry. I won't find it, but man, 13.5 minutes in, it's like a 4,000 plus gold lead. CDZ now maybe making that worse. No, he stuns him up. Oh, CDZ, show him out.
Oh, Ning's here to clear up.
Oh, CDZ still close on break him ankles. He doesn't do it in time though. Ning will clean up the kill, but hey, you stand proud taking down Harry under your tower.
The hard-earned 1v1 turn around into an extra kill on the return. Cross map coming through though. Ning shows up.
Ching's like, I'm out of here, trying to. His ticket might get denied though. Maybe it gets booked. 450 gold over to Ping Z. Meanwhile, they take mid lane.
That is a very strange sequence of events. Of course, silver lining here for Ultra Prime is that they do get that mid lane as well. It's a trade of turrets across the map. Ultra Time Probably didn't want to have to be trading near enough equally though, because you do have turret for turret, you do have a 1-for-1, and then of course the death into that bot turret. This is still, all in all, probably a better play for anyone's Legend. ZDZ was trying to do a bit of cooldown counting, might have gotten banned from a casino, definitely gets him banned from the top lane 1v1. Trying to see if he can get away without that second counter-strike coming off, doesn't quite manage to match that time getting able to clean up house. Either way though, spare the blushes of Harry.
Very, very close. Even with ZDZ having been down pretty early, being able to put it back like that on Jax feels really good. Betty clearing up the mid lane, helping himself out a little bit here. But Dragon spawning in 10 seconds, that's the next setup for Ultra Prime.
Whereas on the other side, Anyone's Legend probably doing the better thing for them and playing around the side of the map where they have priority, they have vision, going towards that Herald instead. And I don't think they really have the luxury of fighting over dragons. They probably want the extra injection of cash from that Herald, make sure they can have a couple more item breakpoints. They are still, 3,500 gold, near enough 4,000 gold behind, and it's going to be nasty for them to try and take straight up fights with that kind of disadvantage.
Got the Riftmaker completed for King Z. Got working on second items everywhere else. Dragon is completed. Rift Herald taken. All the objectives down, but almost tier 2 tower down as well on the bottom side. Ultra Prime won't commit for it, and ZDZ, Betty, and Sword Art are all here. Should be mid lane being pushed in by Doggo. Maybe a little bit of a collapse on bottom side for Ultra Prime.
Yeah, and again, Ultra Prime, they have been happy to split the map at this point. They've completely darkened red side quadrant for Anyone's Legend. They have zero vision in there, and no ability to walk up into something like that Sandraniel as well. Don't have mid priority to play around, but they could look for a top lane play.
He's in some trouble here. Perfect execution available. He goes golden, has the tower helping him. King Z gets very low from a couple of those tower shots, has to back away. Now Betty in some trouble in mid lane. Got Ning right there to set him up. Oh, the drive-by doesn't work. They do get the tower though here, and another tier 2 bites the dust. Big gold advantage continuing to grow for Ultra Prime, and they should be just getting a reset here after.
Yeah. And how often do you see, diving a mid lane in a turret at, the 16-minute mark? You see the pace of the game has really gone in Ultra Prime's favor. They're doing a really good job of making sure that they can keep getting that gold income ticking up, making sure that Doggo is keeping his opponent in Betty down. And Betty and Sword Art, the reunion of the Flash Wolves bot lane of yesteryear, been put under a lot of pressure in this game. They just about get away with their lives, but they can't defend the tower. They get denied a little bit more farm, and though the Sivir Yuumi is very strong as the game goes on, they can't wait for that 3-item spike. It's feeling ever more dangerous from Ultra Prime, and when they have such an advantage themselves across the entire map, you gotta wonder, when Baron swarms, Ultra Prime are probably gonna make a beeline straight towards it and look for either a bait or a finish on that objective.
Yeah, the objective fight's so crucial as we're getting closer and closer to that time, right? And we still have a little while till the next dragon, till that Baron spawns, but right now it's about the tower game for Ultra Prime. And a mid lane push for AL that's getting a big collapse on Doggo. Getting caught here.
Oh, Mr. E.
Trying to get the combo. Yeah, I can't get it there. Dahal now in some trouble with the TP behind. Glacier Prism comes out, and this is an Ultra Prime fight if I've ever seen one. Ning getting so low, though. ZDZ gets the first kill. Cyclone on the back line, though. Stolen from Ting, but he goes down too. ZDZ gets a double before he dies. Now it's in 4. Oh my gosh, Harry's down. That's too much for Doggo, though. Doggo's gonna gun down Xiaohao as well. Ping Z gets out a double kill for the ADC of Ultra Prime.
And it works out somehow as a 3-for-3, all things said and done. I think that a lot of work was done by the Jax. They managed to get into low range, start hammering through some of their opposing targets. But even though you normally wait for a couple more items on this area, they are so potent at this point. And this is kind of already after you see that the Akali ult's been used. You don't have Ping Z able to dive onto that backline. And we were already talking about how it is the Akali test for this new mid laner coming up into the LPL, and sadly in this mid lane fight in Game 3 where it matters, everything's on the line for your potential first series victory of 2023, the Akali missing that ult means that Ultra Prime have so much more to throw at this fight without worry of that Akali executing.
connection needs to be there. KL are going to find successful fights here because we talked about in the draft, coming out of the draft, how important the solo lanes are to these team fights and kind of pressuring the likes of Ultra Prime. But here, the pressure is on, and Ning, he's feeling it. He's feeling it. He needs to get out of the kitchen. He's out of there. The charge goes through, and now AL, they're just snowballing. You got Harry on the side, does hit a shock blast. Not too much damage to King Z, but big advance from anyone's legend.
That was a very different fight from the first up because, of course, there were the ultimates that time. There was an ability for anyone's legend to fight around their newly completed second item spikes on their mid laner, on their AD carry, to make sure that they had, even though they're down in gold, similar stats to play around. They had the Phantom Dancer, Kraken and Slayer Phantom Dancer, incredibly potent combo, and now with that fight, it allows anyone's legend to walk up, to get themselves some more gold, get themselves some more shutdowns, and more importantly as well, bully out Ultra Prime from their side of the jungle for just a couple of minutes. They can't replace the vision that they've been playing around with. They can't keep this chokehold on this game. Even though Ultra Prime had a strong third game so far, it's been a solid response, particularly in this fight, and very importantly timed one too.
Honestly, just great front to back there. As we go back to live, the setup for Dragon is on the table. Soul point for Ultra Prime here. What do you want to see from AL to get into this fight?
You need to stick together, make sure that your Civet is the one which is the core of your team. You don't have the Civet ult though, it's going to make things a little bit difficult.
DDZ on the flank here, they're grouped up. That's perfect for the ricochets. The Boomerang Blade goes forward. Betty's forward. That's Wukong getting it. Xiao Hao has stolen the Dragon. Ning needs to protect the line to get them out of there. Final chapter utilized a lot of ultis burned on each side, but the success comes from AL, but the pressure is on. Ultra Prime might just force this Baron.
They can look towards their right because Anyone's Legend, they used the perfect execution, they used the Cyclone, they don't have two big team fighting at ultimates, which we called out in previous fights before, but they're not looking to move towards that objective.
They're walking back and forth. Now they're just going for the pressure into the top side jungle as AL is feeling it. They're moving forward. DDZ needs to use that loop strike out of there with counter strike, and now back into position for Ultra Prime.
So Dragon taken, but finally over towards that Baron. Can see still no ultimate, still not able to use that perfect execution into the background. How much can AL do in this situation?
They're feeling scorned off of losing that Dragon. Maybe they just want to flip over this Baron now. Ultra Prime maybe trying to force this fight. Xiao Hao on the backside, 4,000 health of the Baron. This is very tricky. Now Ning pulls the trigger, misses, goes wide, can't take the fight afterwards. Baron reset, Ultra Prime are out.
Yeah, they're out, and Ultra Prime, they had a play as soon as those ultimates were down, saying, okay, all right, not enough fighting potential from anyone's legend to take the same kind of victories they had done beforehand, but as much as we were talking about Betty, Sword Art, struggling, this duo, they have been performing so well in the last couple of fights. Clutch spell shields, clutch ability to deal damage on the item spikes, and from behind in the game, anyone's legend holding steady for now.
It's all you can ask for. Don't let the leech become too heavy. We get the second items, as we were saying, third items coming across for the ADCs very, very shortly. 10 stacks on the Roa now for Ching. So a little bit of bonuses there, but Baron's still on the table. Dragon off for 3 minutes. Ching maybe catching out King Z. He is an Akali though, very slippery, and has Xiao Hao with Sword Art right around the corner.
Okay, so let's look at what should be happening the next 5 minutes or so. This Baron, obviously the focus of an awful lot of things. You're not at soul point for Dragon yet, but that'll be in the next 3 minutes. Really does come down to this vision, really comes down to pushing in these waves and whether Ultra Prime can put in good flank vision and see if they can force anyone's legend into awkward parts of Fog of War and try and get rid of, again, some of those ultimates, get rid of that Cyclone, get rid of that perfect execution. That's been very key for them so far. They're forcing AL to respond to this Baron. They don't have vision on it right now.
They don't have vision on it, and they're doing it. I mean, now they realize what could be going on. Still very healthy as the Baron. Xiao Hao's now in front of the pit here, and Ultra Prime want to take the fight. This time, the OG Jungle King does not miss, but Ping Z is on the back line. You got a front to back here working out for Betty. ZDZ taking up the front line. Betty backs off. The On the Hunt is helping out so much, but the AoE from Dago is starting to do its work, and you're getting the flash forward from the Star 80 carry of Ultra Prime. Here comes the Shock Blast, and here comes the boom. Ultra Prime are routing AL. They're on the wrong side of the fight, but Betty, can he have the AoE? He doesn't have it. ZDZ's back. He's down.
You can't
and
do
Ultra
it.
Prime Easy ace across the board and eliminate AL.
The sleeping giant doggo wakes up in that fight. We saw it before on the Zeri, and on the second game in this series for that champion, comes up clutch. The team fights have been hard-earned for Ultra Prime, and it's going to be a hard-earned, what looks like dominant position now in this third game, where they can finally look towards that first series win for this year.
Man, Dargo just needs to take a bow after this one. The come up of this man, we've seen, he came onto the world stage and made the biggest splash for the PCS, and now we're getting to see, after a year of trials and tribulations coming in, even the start of this split, this man is popping off.
And serious credit to Harry as well on the Jace. Jace actually gets a lot of work done. Manages to keep people in such a low HP bar in the brief window of time he had to wail on them in hammer form to get this big ability for Doggo to run ramp and understand that they are only just 1 or 2 hits away from death, and that is now, after this play, Baron down, huge amount of kills, walking away with all of their lives intact as well, somehow, some way. Ultra Prime walk away now with an 8,000 gold advantage, and what you have to assume, a game-winning advantage after that phase of play.
Now, calming down just a little bit from the Ultra Prime hype, you've got to think of what can AL do in this. They have the veterancy of Betty and Sword Art. Betty, the longest tenured active ADC, and coming into this one on a Sivir, late game scaling, they have to survive, they have to make it to the moment, but Ande as Doggo putting some damage onto the inner tier tower of the mid lane.
Well, he's got himself that Ravenous Hydra as well. On top of that, Immortal Shield Bow Doggo once again at that sustained breakpoint. It's so hard to get down to stick on this carry. And when the fights go long, that sustain really comes up clutch. And you can see the siege coming through, the damage coming through,
Look
the
at
move
him!
speed coming through.
Look at him! He's just popping off again and again! The lightning is raining onto AL, and they've now taken an inhib in bottom side. Do they just push for the end here? They're onto the towers, maybe a little bit of overextension, but Doggo is right up in front, right up trying to do the damage, and that will be one tower down. Ching goes in, goes gold, and now engaged from AL. This is the last moment, the death rattle, and do they have it? Ping Z goes golden, everything's going to chaos, and they're routed! They have no hopes! And Ultra Prime with the 509 Doggo have bursted onto the scene with their first series win!
Welcome back, Ultra Prime. Welcome back, Doggo. Welcome back, Ning and Bao Lan. It's 2-1. It's hard-earned. It's a bit of a scrap. Took them some knocks to get to this point. They walk away with their series victory. The first one for 2023 and anyone's legend. 0-3. Winless before the break, Chinese New Year. Yet to find a win afterwards as well. First team to reach that scoreline, unfortunately for them. There are some bright sparks for that team, just not enough to spark into something more flammable than that.
Ultra Prime feeling the spark that is their namesake here. Really just a level up performance in terms of what they wanted to approach as a style, how they wanted to execute, and being a conduit of Ning to weaponize this bottom lane. That's what we wanted. That's what we got.
And I think you're going to have to walk away from this game now as anyone's legend, really wondering about your priorities in terms of those bot lanes. You did walk away with that Yuumi in that first game, but it did feel like that Lucian Nami for both these teams was a real bait pick in the first 2 games. And I wonder if going forwards, that's something that they should put a little less priority on. That lane has not necessarily worked out for all teams. It's not as guaranteed a win as it was before. It's taken a lot of nerfs, and it does feel like you have to really utilize that one item spike to such an effect, which wasn't really done by these teams in this series. So a lot to ruminate on, a lot to think back on. I'm sure there's an awful lot to review.
Yeah, and I think you could obviously see the disappointment on AL's faces, right? But I think that's where, again, we were highlighting in the game to see if it happened, but now even more importantly, after game, out of game, that veterancy is going to come into fold. And I think seeing what they do to bounce back from this is going to be very crucial in their next steps because, again, we're still trying to figure out where do their strengths lie and how do they focus. We saw in game number 1 a clear focus that worked for them, and trying to find that and adapt that into a series is going to be that next difficult part, it feels like.
And, you know, I think we've talked an awful lot about like the sadness of anyone's legend who's like, actually, no, ZDZ had some great moments.
He did.
Doggo, Betty on that side had some great moments
Oh,
too.
it was so good.
Then on the other side, that name would slipped out. Doggo, this guy, we know he has the ability to be a real top tier AD carry. Has struggled to match that over long periods of time. Had some awkward moments even last year, right? Had some inconsistencies. But at least in this game, in this series, he's showing once again what you can build around if he starts to show up on the day.
Yeah, and the combination with Balan, honestly, worlds different from what we saw before the break, right? There were miscommunications just in lane between the two's movement. You could just tell. Now it feels like they're right on the same page, and it feels really good for Ning to have that stability bot lane to work through. And you just look at the damage numbers, they speak for themselves, but that gold graph does as well.
That it does. And yeah, I think there's an awful lot for Ultra Prime to think about in regards to how they execute on their plays. Even in this game, there was a couple of times where you were worried about what was happening with the Jax getting into the backline, with the Wukong getting into the backline, not being able to shut down the Sivir. And though those happen, of course, they walk away with the win. But neither of these teams, I think, will be entirely happy with their performance today. There's a lot to be built on, and when you have such a league of changing teams, changing faces, and understanding and discovering how you want to play the game, this has got to be, square one or just a couple of squares in on your journey towards LPL kind of journey throughout this year.
Yeah, and I very much want to see exactly what happens from here, right? Ning did play Sejuani 3 times. And so I will say I want to see kind of the adaptation comes. I think there is a huge jungle pool right now, and I want to see Ning expand that a little bit more and how that plays into the rest of the comp that they want to continue to build around. But I want to look forward for these teams a little bit before we get to interviews and things like that, because Ultra Prime, they'll be coming against FPX next time around. And anyone's legend, if I have it right here, will be going against LGD. So a little bit different in the totem poles, it feels like.
Yeah, and you look at both of those teams. They are ones which have also had their own struggles. I think LGD, if we're talking about imprecise early games, which we saw a little bit, from Ultra Prime in regards to having the right decisions, but not really being able to capitalize on it. I think LGD have had similar issues, so I think that's a weakness there, which you can potentially exploit. So once again, these matches are going to be really important. And though it is only a couple of weeks in, of course, you only play each team once, just worth putting it on there and say, if there is a time to win against a struggling team, it is now.
Yep. It's kind of like the theme of the night. It feels like it's a time of change. It's a time of craziness. It's time to come up as well, to show up. And again, just putting more praise on Ultra Prime. I think seeing as well Ching and Harry, I mentioned it multiple times during the cast, but seeing them work between these veterans around them and the names around them, I think is a small point of happiness for me, because you do get to see them kind of feeling themselves, right? Ching was kind of popping off in this series as well. Harry holding his own at the top side and even having very strong games of his own. I think within that, there is a lot of growth and possibilities ready to go. So I'm excited to see the continued growth. We do also have our interview ready to go. So let's kick it over to Wendy and Balan.
Hello everyone, welcome to interview, and I'm standing by with Baolan from UP. So congratulations on the first win of the split. So how did it feel to play on stage again, especially together with your old friend Ning? 那首先恭喜你们今天获得了赛季的首胜。第一个问题要问到的是，重回赛场，而且这次拿下胜利，感觉怎么样？特别是和你的老朋友宁也是重聚在了 UP 嘛。
其实也是蛮久违的吧，从这个角度上来说，因为有很长一段时间没有在比赛上出现了，然后也是，尤其是上海虹桥就是更久没有了，因为我们上一次第一场比赛是在客场嘛，就是在别的队伍的主场，所以就是，然后也是很久没有在有观众的环境下进行比赛了，就还是蛮激动的，因为是也算让1追2吧，然后我们可能，就是赢的过程可能比我们预想的要困难吧，所以是还是蛮激动的。
So I really feel it has been a long time since I played on stage, and also this is our first time to play here in the Shanghai studio, because the last time we played on stage was in the hometown of other teams. So I feels like for this time we were able to have so many audience here in the arena, because I haven't been experienced this kind of atmosphere for such a long time. So I feel everything is so good, and for today we were able to get this victory. I feel so good about this. And also, you talk a bit more about you didn't manage to get the win for the first game, but after that, you guys really have a very solid play in both game 2 and 3. So, could you share more about the feedbacks made by the team immediately after that game 1？那其实你刚才也提到说是一个小小的让一追二嘛，其实后两局打的是非常好的，所以说可能在第一局结束之后，有对自己的失利进行什么样的一些反馈或者总结或者改变呢？
因为这个版本下路组合还是卢娜对泽利加猫很多嘛，然后我们就是包括今天第一场比赛已经连续使用3场卢娜了。虽然我们在就是理解上觉得这是差不多的，但是从比赛上的效果看起来好像泽利会猫会更稳定一些。然后我就说我们既然卢娜已经玩太多了，要不就尝试一下切换一下，就是试试另一边。然后也算是算是符合我们的就是想要的效果吧，就是打出来了，然后就是顺利的赢下来了。
So I think the mainly changes of our feedbacks after game 1 is about the champion choices in the bot lane, because it feels like in the recent meta, Zeri Yumi and Lucian Nami can be the very hot picks recently. But to be honest, we have played 3 games of Lucian Nami already on the stage of LPL this year. But we didn't manage to have a very good result. So maybe, although we feels like these 2 bot lane matchups can be the half win rate, but maybe on stage some things can be different. So we would like to give Zeri and Yumi this a new try. So we would like to have some changes in the bot lane champion choices in both game 2 and 3. So that are the changes we made. And thank you for the sharing. And let's talk a bit more about game 3, because I feel like in game 3 you guys played quite aggressively from the early beginning, especially you guys were able to have some goal lead and also got more kills in your pocket to open the whole situations from the early game skirmishes and also the tower dive. So share us more about the early game focus in that game 3. 那其实说到第3局，感觉你们从前期就打得很凶，然后一直在进行越塔呀，包括说一些小规模的团战，然后拿到了一些人头和经济优势。所以说，可能前期整个关注的重点是哪些呢？
因为我们的阵容上面，就是我们下路其实也属于是前期相对比较主动，跟对面相比，然后我们也是进攻的下路，然后我们上路也选的是一个候选的一个进攻的英雄，然后但是我们有一个好处就是我们不会因为打野就是需要选择进攻点而陷入为难，因为我们下路是不太容易被猫配合 gank 的，然后也是因为这个点，我们上下路可以同时进攻，而且都取得了好的效果，然后我们有积极沟通找到对面打野的位置，对。
So I feels like based on our draft for game 3, we can play more aggressively in the early game in the laning phase, or especially with opponent's team, they have the Yumi. Maybe our jungler player, he will not be afraid that we can face some ganks from the opponent's team, because Yumi can be a bit hard to make so many ganks. And also for the top lane champion choices, because it is our last pick, so it feels like it can be a counter pick. So all the lanes can be quite comfortable for our guys. So Ning, our jungler, can really have a very good opportunities to make some ganks to open the whole situation for the team from the early phase, and we feels like our strategy was able to have a very good result based on our draft, so we're quite happy about this result. And I want to talk a bit more about the rosters, because in this split UP have changed to a brand new rosters. So what's your expectation to this team, this UP this year? 那最后一个问题也是，其实今年 UP 也是换了一个全新的阵容嘛，所以说你可能觉得对今年这个阵容有什么属于你的一个期望呢？
因为我们今年也是就是都是在一个全新的队伍吧，基本上可以说就所有人都是新来的，然后大家可能也需要时间磨合，然后队伍里也有很多就是刚打职业没有很久的，就是相对算是新人嘛，然后比赛经验可能也不是很多，当然并不是说就是比赛经验多就一定会怎么样，而是可能我们确实需要就是很全新我们，所以我们可能需要更多的时间，然后想要有好的表现也要付出更多的努力，然后期望的话，希望能进季后赛。
So basically, all of us are the newcomers to this new UP, and also we have some rookies, and they are lack of experience, maybe played on stage, played on LPL. So we really need time to build up our synergy, to have a more better coordination as a team. And for our expectation, maybe we need more time to play better in the future. And maybe for the expectations, I would like to say I hope we can get into the playoffs. So congratulations on today's win, and best of luck for the following matchups as well. 再次恭喜你们，后面加油 ！And back to you guys. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.